joining online. So first, we are very lucky to have Mr. Jagdish Babu, who is the Chief Policy and Partnership Step Foundation India. This is a kind of education social initiative. All of you, of course, I'm pretty sure know about Mr. Nandan Nilekani, who is actually regarded as the father of DPI in India. So he is actually the chairperson of this Step Foundation. Of course, we will hear much more from Jagdish Da on that thing. So we are very happy to have him and his presentation in our session. We also are very lucky to have two of the distinguished panelists here with us. Dr. Rokunujaman, whom I personally have known for over 2 decades. He's the professor in Department of Electronics and Computer Engineering, North-South University, and he's a kind of, not a kind of pure academician, he's a kind of also policy researcher. He regularly writes in different kind of newspapers and both locally and internationally, and he has got very good insights and his own kind of deep thinking on a lot of the areas, including innovation and policy things. So he can actually add his own insights into the subject matter today. We also have Mr. Fazle Rabbi, Senior Program Manager, Agami EdTech, who is actually doing, the Agami EdTech is actually doing a lot of kind of social education initiatives for the underprivileged, and we know that a lot of the NRBs, non-resident Bangladeshis across the world, are very much closely associated with this Agami EdTech, our Agami EdTech Foundation. So we can also learn something from Mr. Rabbi and his kind of thoughts on the whole DPI issues. So, and we also have Miss Julie D. Barberac, Program Coordinator, Inclusive Education and Disability, UNICEF, Latin America and Caribbean. So is she going to join with us? Okay. Oh, she, okay, I think we can invite her at the, after the, oh, she's already there? Okay, okay. Hi, Julie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well and I can see everyone.
Okay, thanks.
I think I see myself now.
Okay, good to you. Good to have you here. Okay.
Thank you.
So, like, I have done the small introduction, so I now request Jagdish Da to kind of give your presentation, and would be helpful if you can wrap it up in next 10 minutes. Sure. Thanks.
Okay, while they load my presentation, first of all, congratulations on this summit, DPI and AI. It can't get any better than this to talk about DPI as a declaration from Bangladesh. And it takes this kind of a summit to shift from digital to smart, as Anir was talking about it in the morning. It's phenomenal shift. Just mentally, it's a phenomenal shift to think from digital to smart, right? So my name is Jagdish. I am the Chief Operating Officer of XSTEP Foundation. I was part of the India's Identity Project, and before that I was with Intel Corporation in India and Asia Pac. Okay. I'll try to verbalize as much as possible, so in the next 10 minutes you don't have to stress your eyes on the screen, right? Okay. So we were part of the Identity Project, and post 2015 we came together as XSTEP Foundation to continue the transformation agenda in part of many of those transformational projects in the country. But today what I will talk about is my lived experience of a DPI, one of the lived experiences of a DPI, and how to think about a DPI, Right? We have heard a lot about DPI and what it can do for the country, but generally, I would think that it's a arduous journey to transform a sector, um, and the steps involved are quite intricate. So I thought today, in the next 10 minutes, I will narrate my lived experience using one educational transformation story in India. But the story you could, Pramod Verma is my colleague who spoke in the morning with DPI story. It's applicable in other domains, and you will see it's not just education, and it's also skilling, right? Yeah, slides are moving good. So the original mandate of the organization, as said by our chairman Nandan Nilekani, was to enhance access to learning opportunities for 200 million children by 2020, and you will see in some sense that mission getting accomplished. We are beyond 2020, as you would see, but we are kind of looking at that as a larger landscape of a 200 million children scale, and look at transformation, all right, of livelihoods. So if you look at the problem statement of any DPI or digital, smart, etc., it's about trying to bring significant efficiencies, bring significant transformation. That's about what we are trying to do, right? That's a larger idea. Generally speaking, in the sense of technology, what we normally do, we start with a small solution, keep on changing the solution, right? And as in this case, the sector is a very complex sector. It's first of all big and diverse, right? So generally speaking, you would have diverse solutions, many solutions in order to solve for this, right? That's how generally all solutions over a period of time. You most of the time try to solve with a solution for today's problem, right? You build a solution because I see a problem, I want to solve it, and I build a solution. That's obvious. But innovation happens for a future possibility, right? Innovation is about future possibilities. Much of the time in our minds, we generally really relate to innovation barriers, silos. Those words are all used, saying the current solution does not allow for new things to happen. That's how we think about it, right? Why so? How do you construct a solution that will also solve future problems? Well, I don't know what the problems are. I only know the current problem that I can see in front of me. So what is this construct of a DPI that can actually solve for future problems that I don't even know what it is, right? This is the conundrum of a DPI. Generally speaking, we try to say digitize as DPI. No. How would you think about DPI? I will end my session of this 10 minutes with a template of going about it, right? So we came back into this journey with an experience of identity, where in 2009, you could imagine what could happen, but you can't foretell a future. You can design for a future, but you can't foretell the future. So you design the infrastructure with certain possible futures that will unfold in mind, but accommodate reality, what could actually happen and how does the system evolve, right? So as you would see in the hindsight, when I say in the hindsight, 135 billion 1.35 billion identities issued, and so many authentications conducted, and so on and so forth. We all know the data here. Today morning also there was a presentation on digital identity and so on and so forth, right? So this is seeing it in hindsight, but see, being part of that journey, I can tell you that you can design for a potential future, but you cannot predict that. You got to have an infrastructure that becomes fluid. How do you design it? That's a question, right? So this is where the seeds of from that journey we started the seeds of a educational transformation journey, and this is 2014-15 when we started the organization. And the challenge is, as an infrastructure, you got to think about it is like an underlying layer. So when if you were to, this hotel is a very old hotel, but imagine you are part of the foundation laying ceremony of the hotel. You can't really imagine all of these kind of enclosures looking at the foundation. You can approximately get an idea that there will be so many enclosures and so many possibilities with the enclosure, but this session happening is not something that you could imagine. But that's the idea of an infrastructure, right? It should factor for diverse solutions. Solutions solve a problem and problems are not known. So what are you talking about, right? And which means that first circle that showed up are the current set of problems it is solving. But these were not the problems that were thought of when the infrastructure was designed. So as the problems emerged, these are some of the main problems that the platform is solving for, whether it is for teachers or for students, right? And most importantly, as a national infrastructure, you would need budgets, you need programs, and so each of the problem is not solved by an individual. It's a national program, and that is going to states, and those states run programs to solve for these problems, right? And so is various use cases that these are all the vehicles, right? Whether it is remediation programs, revision programs, solving for learning outcomes, and so on and so forth. You see how you think about an infrastructure not as a point activity, but that multiple programs can be conceived on, budgeted, and then you run the campaigns on it, and then the infrastructure supports all of that in a fluid manner. I would not say transparent, I would say fluid manner, so that you actually use the same infrastructure for different programs, and that has been the achievement in this particular platform, right? You call it platform, but you know, I'm using it a little interchangeably. What has been the achievement so far, right? If you notice from a children's perspective, one of the main achievements have been the learning time that children are spending on it. 61 billion minutes of learning that was achieved in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, right? And 180 million, you remember the 200 million number I talked about in the beginning? Potentially this has reached 180 million children, right? Students. So that's another interesting thing, right? In the organizational mandate itself, there is a 200 million goal, and you design initiatives that will reach 200 million. That's, I find it very interesting, right? And from a teacher's perspective, we have about 11 million teachers, I think, and about 8 million teachers have used it in some form or the other, and 130 million teacher skilling credentials have been issued, meaning teachers taking training and so on, 130 million completed credentials, right? Now that micro improvement project is a very interesting one, where teachers come in and say, you know what, I want to improve my school by, you know, painting the school, I want to improve the school's library, and they run a project and they complete a project. It's an idea, it's a solution, it's a problem, but the infrastructure allows for it, where a teacher can create a project and run a project. It's just one of the solutions, right? So how does this infrastructure therefore work, right? Because your problems are in the future, solutions have to be thought of in the future, but the infrastructure should support for it. An example, right? We all have textbooks, right? And we in India there must be about 700,000, well no, 7,000 textbook titles, right? Publications, right? And 600 million copies get printed, more or less, right? How do you have a case for a digital solution supported by the infrastructure that solves for many, many different use cases? As here the picture indicates 6 use cases. One QR code in every chapter, sometimes multiple QR codes in every chapter, but solving for many different use cases for different actors. If you are a teacher, the same QR code does something. If you are a student, it does something, right? For if you are a student, it can do multiple things. So as an example of what an infrastructure could power from a simple QR code, right? And the same QR code used by states for different purposes, whether you put it in a completion certificate, which is a credential, digital credential, student diaries that go to the parents, and textbooks, of course, right? And every QR code is like a IoT, Internet of Things, chip, right? Every chapter has a chip. Imagine that speaking. Imagine a child carrying 20 textbooks, for example, right? 7 textbooks, for example. Those many QR codes are moving to school. Imagine they're talking, right? And imagine every scan is a data point, right? So this kind of observability is enabled, right? But the infrastructure allowed for that progression to happen, but that was not limited to education. The idea inspired our oil gas companies to actually put traceability on cylinders, because there was a lot of pilferage and the loss due to shipments and so on. So the same idea in a different sector. That's the idea I was talking about, that these DPIs are not actually sector specific. It's not about solving for education. One idea solving for multiple segments, right? You'll see some more. This is about teachers. I talked about students and textbooks and all, teachers, credentials, skilling and so on, right? 160 million course enrollments in the last few years, right? And it's not again about state, center, state teachers, state education board. So many players are there and all of them have to be part of that system. You got to include them, and each one of them may have their own requirements, right? So on and so forth. It's not to design a solution for each one of them. Can we have an infrastructure that takes care of all of their needs so they can innovate and therefore new possibilities can be unleashed? And so in some sense, I talked about innovation barriers and how do you create a possibility for innovations without barriers, right? You look at some of the examples that are being talked about here. The skilling credentialed delivery from the platform is used by teachers, national training missions and so on, that resulted in that 160 million we talked about. But vaccine certificates coming from the same infrastructure as an idea, right? Leveraging the same building blocks. So work experience, and you will see one of the initiatives I'll talk at the end, also leveraging the same idea. So what's the larger idea? How do you get to this, right? Is it by solving small problems one at a time and then making all of them together as a service, or do you want to do back and forth to come back to a DPI that will never be complete, because every time you try to change it, a new problem has come, and things are never static, things keep changing. The one template that we have followed is what I call the dolphining approach. You see the power of a QR code, let's say back in 2013, 14. Oh yeah, I mean, you could actually scan it from a phone and there is a possibility. Now, could it change something for textbooks? Could it change something for education? Yeah, it's possible. But would you want to design a QR scanner as a solution, or you want to make QR part of the identity infrastructure for an asset? Right? It could be put on the trees, it could be put on the gas cylinders, it could be put in the textbooks. How do you take it one level up so that it is multifunctional? So it is same QR code that's in my vaccine certificate for COVID times and same QR code that's in the textbook. Same idea. Same QR code that's coming up on the gas cylinder, right? So one level up, generalize building blocks so that you can merge, mix and match both the idea, the principles and the code to form new solutions, right? And that is been what we have done in the last 7-8 years, defining multiple building blocks under an open source initiative called Sunbird, right? Those micro improvements as an idea I talked about is a building block. You could actually take that micro improvement building block, insert it as an idea first, or as a code into your platform. Same thing that Anil talked about, building blocks, Lego top blocks that you can actually mix and match to form new possibilities. That's what we are talking about here, right? So you have a problem, you have a solution, but imagine you up-level that, generalize it, and make building blocks out of it, then it becomes useful in many different situations. You can launch DPIs with it now that others can use the services of, right? So these building blocks are as code is available, and that's what is used in the Diksha project as one that you see on the left. They just took the code. Government of India uses this to run their national platform. Could it be that multiple countries could do the same, and that's what, as a part of the G20, India has offered to other countries, and we're working with A2I to make such a possibility. Oops, that's me, sorry. Now, those building blocks, while they were targeted to school education, actually solved for many different domains already. healthcare, capacity building, agriculture, vaccination, and so on, right? Because the idea is same, but one application is education, but the same building blocks are used in different domains for solving different problems, right? IGOT is a Government of India initiative to skill up workforce, the national government workforce, and yeah, 2 more minutes. And this is training our senior most bureaucrats to the municipal workers, skilling them. It's about that initiative, leveraging the same building blocks. So think about one set of building blocks used as one rubber band for students and teachers, but other one for the senior most bureaucrats to municipal workers, skilling them on a real-time basis using digital technologies. And that's that IGOT platform. So you see the building blocks can actually now be used for various purposes if you think DPI in the first place and not think digital, right? So then going beyond, countries adopting it for their purposes in the way they have it in their digital systems and not exactly the way India has done. That's possible because why? The building blocks are actually configurable, therefore you can take it and adopt it the way I was asking you to do. For payment infrastructure, the Sunbird building blocks are being talked about. So these are the new initiatives that are coming up, new building blocks. AI is showing up, and tomorrow we will talk about AI also. Language learning is something that I am working on right now, again as a building block. This language learning uses the same technology that your 333, what say, 333, is that what you say? 333 is a triple three initiative that powers the Bangla voice, right? Language learning uses the same building block. Language learning as a solution uses the building blocks that you are also using. Recently you launched, recently there was a launch, right? So it's the same building blocks that we enabled for. Honest is an interesting example. While content is become commodity, content discovery is not. The problem statement that I see is water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. How do you build protocols so that content, skilling opportunities, scholarship opportunities, livelihood opportunities can be discovered real time? Matchmaking can happen. That's honest, right? Open network for education and skilling transformation, right? Protocol play. Similar to UPI for the payment infrastructure, and recently in the last 2-3 years we have our own shopping infrastructure called ONDC, all powered by one building block that we developed called Beacon, which is a discovery protocol. I have and I want just to match make that demand supply whatever idea, powers shopping where you can actually run your own shopping network, and here's skilling and education. So the larger idea I am talking about is there is a journey to make, and there are examples of taking this journey, but when you make that kind of a journey, you can actually build on each other and create a much larger possibility than any one digital solution can power up. And that's the future that is very exciting, the theme of this session, the DPI, and adding to the power of AI, of course, and that I see as a possibility, a great possibility for Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thanks, Jagdish Da. I think we all have few questions for him, but I will actually hold it till we actually complete the panel discussions. So I will actually start this panel discussion with some comments from Julie, and then I will actually go to Dr. Rakunujaman and also to Mr. Rabbi. So Julie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
thanks.
very clearly. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think you have been kind of very active in particularly the inclusive education and disability from a UNICEF perspective. Now we have seen, we have actually heard a lot of the very recent and innovative initiatives that are being done in India, particularly, and because in India it is not only in education but also in different other things like commerce, like finance and all those things. And education is, of course, one part of that thing, what is common, based on the common building block. But I think one of the important thing that came out is always about the connectivity, because we have seen, particularly in some developed countries, and of course also countries like India, where the foundation was built by massive internet connectivity across, not only across the cities, but across villages and everything. Now, from your perspective, I think a lot of the developing countries, and including Bangladesh also, we have seen that particularly in the rural areas, and also to a lot of the underprivileged kind of section of the society, connectivity is still an issue, a big time issue. And we have seen that in COVID time, where we have seen important education hour lost for a huge amount of, like, huge part of the people, just because they didn't have any connectivity. The urban people or the middle class people, students, could actually get like regular education, but whereas the rural and underprivileged section could not get it. Now we are talking about this DPI and all those kind of things. What's your take about the importance and of the connectivity, and how you see the DPI things, initiatives getting some roadblocks because the basic connectivity issue is not there? Julie.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for having me today. So I am Julie de Barberac, and I've been leading the Accessible Digital Textbook Initiative for UNICEF since 2016. So I focus mostly on building access to quality education, to take out the barriers for quality education for children with disabilities, mostly. Because we know that inaccessible infrastructure, like you were saying, inflexible curricula, and lack of assistive devices or accessible learning materials create those barriers in the learning journey. So maybe I'm going to explain a little bit what we've been doing at UNICEF with what we call the ADT initiative, which is short term for accessible digital technology, digital textbook, initiative. So we are currently implementing in 10 countries across Latin America and East Africa. And we work closely with ministries of education to develop the curriculum materials in an accessible format, following universal design for learning principles. And these textbooks can be used, as you were saying, online and offline, but we tend to mostly produce them in a way that children can download them and use them offline. So our approach goes a bit beyond simply improving access to textbook. We also work with governments to build capacity of teachers, assess the accessibility of the entire educational ecosystem. And we support them with, for example, accessibility audit of their learning management system, just as an example. And like Mr. Bayou was saying earlier, just now, we tried in this project to design for the future, where we were pushing a lot of barriers in the disability inclusion sphere, especially in education, where usually people work in silos. So what we did is we developed accessible digital textbooks where we empower users to personalize their learning experience, so they can select features of narration, sign language videos, mother tongue, simplified language, and audio description of images. So it's a flexibility that ensures that children with diverse learning needs and preferences can access and participate in the same content, and they have equal opportunities as their peers. So now, to answer a bit of your question, but also to make also a link with opportunities to leverage initiatives like the ADT of UNICEF within the broader framework of digital public infrastructure for education, particularly in the context of disability inclusive education. So maybe I will share 3 insights. First, what we saw and what we promote is inclusivity. So it's essential for digital public infrastructure to cater for the diverse needs of all users. Just as with the ADT, public educational platforms should provide personalized and adaptive learning experiences based on the abilities of all children. This would enable access to interactive learning, online collaboration, or participation in discussions, for example, and it will foster a sense of belonging and active involvement. Second, we put the importance on teacher training because it's crucial. We saw that even the most innovative tools and resources would not be effective if teachers are not trained to integrate them in their daily practice. So if they cannot use it in the classroom with the different children, and if they cannot incorporate that and include this on everyday learning, they will not use it. So it's really important to have a report to how the teachers effectively utilize them in the classroom. And also we worked, it's a great synergies with DPI is to foster strong local partnerships and collaborations between governments, educational institutions, tech companies, disability advocacy and organizations as well. So we've worked with a lot of players in each of the countries where we implemented the project. The Ministry of Education usually leads and creates those multidisciplinary teams. They decide who are going to be the local partners. The most complicated one, I think, that we have faced is to find very good tech companies that will be able to develop those solutions that are accessible, but also utilizing understanding the whole ecosystem and providing solutions that are offline and online as well. So what we saw is that we can harness this collective expertise to develop the solutions and innovations to ensure that DPIs are not only accessible, but they also are responsive to the specific needs of all students in regions and within countries. What we think as well that we can invest and prioritize at UNICEF in this sphere of disability inclusion for broader digital public infrastructures would be to invest in development and implementation of comprehensive standards and guidelines for DPs, but that are also highlighting all the accessibility features that needs to be done in the platforms, the applications, and every content that are there. They need to adhere to accessibility requirements, and they be making them usable by everyone, regardless of the abilities. So we saw that if you don't build the infrastructures with accessibility in mind from the onset, then it is very costly to rebuild all these systems afterwards. So it's really important to think it before and to keep in line with the thought of Mr. Bayou of thinking for the future, right? We're building something with problems that we understand now, but we all know at the moment that accessibility is a real challenge for children. So we really need to put investment in creating those platforms accessible for all. When I say children, I also mean the whole community and the teachers and the education sector. And for that, we need also to invest in digital literacy programs. As I said earlier, even if the best innovation is in the hands of the teachers, they will not use it if they don't have the skills and knowledge to integrate it in their daily teaching. In my experience, I saw many schools that had access to great accessible learning materials, some that we developed with them and others that were existing. And they were on laptops, but they were stored because no one knew what to do when confronted with a technical problem. So they just abandoned it. So if we allocating resources towards capacity building and training, not only for educators, but for administrators and developers, in service and pre-service, if we can, will enhance their understanding of accessibility principles, and it will equip them with the knowledge and the skills to create and maintain, which is very important, inclusive digital environments. This also brings me to a point where the creation of tools with UNICEF that are usable offline also answers one of those needs of not having to always update, because the capacity of teachers and administration to update new apps or new content is very difficult. So we tend to do our textbooks are created usually in EPUB 3 and then they're downloaded on and stored in the devices of the children. But we can also use some intranet type in communities where they don't have access to internet. So we store, and then the content that is very heavy, like videos, are also in the content intranet, and then everybody content access point that we call, but we have access to that content access point, and then the children who need the videos or the different resources that are more heavy can have access directly without being connected. So we use this type of offline resources. Another point that I wanted to make is that in terms of investment, UNICEF really stressed the need to invest in providing digital content and services for IDPs in local language, including sign language, to ensure that a wider population can access and understand the information that is provided. This is especially important in culturally diverse regions where we usually work, and where multiple languages are spoken. For example, in Paraguay, we added the mother tongue Guarani into the ADTs as one of the selection for the children, and teacher can select that language to include indigenous children in the classroom. So we're also catering children with disabilities, but also children who are out of school and do have any language barriers to education. And finally, we should invest in child-centered design by involving local communities, parents, children in the design and implementation of digital initiatives, which is what we've done in every country where we implement this solution. And this initiative, we bring on the multidisciplinary team that we create with the government, involves children with disabilities, youth with disabilities. They will validate the content, they will give us ideas, and they will participate in designing as well of the textbooks and how they would like to interact with it. Finally, I think that focusing on investment in these areas that I just mentioned can lay the foundation for an inclusive digital public infrastructure that benefits all learners, regardless of their abilities, and close the gap in education. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie, for giving the UNICEF perspective and some of the things that you are actually doing. If we have time, we will come back again to you. But before that, we have, of course, two other panelists who are among us physically here. So I will start with Dr. Rokunujaman. And of course, it is going to be very kind of top-level policy aspect insight from you. Now, we are talking about DPI, and DPI is, of course, a little bit kind of public sector-led or government or state-led. Now of course, this has actually worked phenomenally well, particularly for the financial industry. We know, of course, about kind of instant payment, all those things. Those are a little bit kind of utility type of thing, like it is almost kind of basic utility where you want to send money from one place to another, and the national ID and all those things, identification and other things. But when we're talking about education, which is a much more a content-heavy kind of thing, and that content requires updation, like because world around us is changing constantly, and we also need a lot of innovation, regular day-to-day innovation. Do you think that DPI approach is as applicable as in education, what it has been like it has been in other industries like fintech and other things? What's your take on that?
Okay. So should I come here?
No, like, oh, you don't have mic.
No, over there. And I think I was sent two questions by the organizers. Are those two questions still valid for me?
I think you can just like improvise. I think you can improvise.
Anyway, before I speak about the applicability of DPI type of software infrastructure or digital public infrastructure to support the education, I would like to draw attention to a larger problem. So what the keynote speaker was referring to, and the educational transformation and the role of technology in that. My first question to us, what is the purpose of education? Whatever the arguments could be, perhaps the primary purpose is to create productive workforce, make them eligible for jobs, empower them to create economic value, to drive the economic prosperity. Now here we are talking about the role of role of technology in delivering educational services. But are we asking the question, how is the technology changing the role of human in work? And what kind of academic qualities are they need to acquire through the educational system to make them eligible for work? We understand there are many predictions regarding to the obsolescence of knowledge and skill of what we are going to develop among our students and their validity in the job market the time they are going to enter. If you look into the data all across the world, it is indicating that jobs of university graduates are highly vulnerable to technology. Recent news of the Daily Star indicates that unemployment of graduates in Bangladesh has doubled over the last 5 years. It has reached close to 1 million. But you know that domestic help and driver, how it is difficult to find them. But how come our university or college graduates are facing growing unemployment? Is education failing to empower them for the job? If education fails, should we first ask the question, should we transform the education? And if it is, then what could be the role of technology to make that transformation? In a nutshell, what we have been observing across the world, there is an exponential growth of high-paying R&D jobs, particularly in advanced countries. There is a net job loss in the middle layer. We call it hollowing out the middle. That means applying the knowledge and skill or applying the codified knowledge and skill to deliver services that is highly amenable to automation. And in North America and Europe, already there is a negative effect, a negative job loss effect. And in Bangladesh, in India, it is no different. 85% of engineering graduates in India do not find engineering jobs. Their major media outlets are publishing news items like jobless graduate, worthless degrees. Are we putting technology to produce more worthless degrees? Or we would like to make technology to make worthy degrees? That question we need to ask first before I speak what is the role of DPI to improve the education. Now, there is another area. Oftentimes we believe that people who do not have education are highly vulnerable to technology, but that is opposite. People who do not have education mostly rely on innate abilities to play a role in jobs that are extremely immune to automation. And that is the reason there are sayings that dull jobs are for human and white-collar jobs are for machines. Now that is the reality. We need to pay serious attention before we speak about the role of technology in transforming education. We need to transform the education first for make our graduates worthy for jobs. Now, innate abilities. Does digital platform sharpen innate abilities? Answer is no. Delivery of education over online platform mainly focuses on delivery of codified knowledge and skill that is highly amenable to automation. It is losing market value. Why is the market value rising? That is the ability to produce knowledge, ability to produce ideas, ability to understand the dynamics, unfolding dynamics, and ability to sharpen your innate abilities. And digital means does not serve that purpose. So my input to the question of what the moderator asked me would be, before we say, is DPI suitable for education? We should ask the question, what kind of education you would like to deliver? And what is the purpose for that? And if it is the purpose to
say it is a primary education, if we just focus it
if
on
it's the primary education, then the question is very serious. Memorization should not be the focus. It is about creating the ability of imagination, sharpening their innate abilities, improving their motivation. That should be the first focus, and technology cannot do it. Let me give you an example. Japan has been experiencing serious nurse shortage to look after their growing elderly population. Honda felt technology could be a solution. Honda invested $500 million over 32 years to develop a robotic technology called Asimo. Then Honda took it to nursing homes, and elderly people rejected it because that machine cannot feel their mind, cannot feel their soul, and that is a cold thing. And that does not inspire them to take service from the machines. So how do we expect that the robot, the machine, or the software robot, or whatever the bots, or whatever the names we give it to them, how are they going to inspire our children? How are they going to help them to expand their imagination? How are they going to motivate them? That is the major problem for primary school education, the first thing to begin with. How are they going to help to sharpen their innate abilities? Technology is incapable to do that. So first we look into what is the purpose of education, then we need to define the transformation, then we need to figure out what could be the role of technology. That would be my first question for the organizers to think of before promoting DPI or any other public or digital infrastructure for the education.
I think that question may be responded by Jagdish when I give him floor after the panel discussion.
Okay, so, thank you very much.
Thanks. So just because we are a little bit running short of time, I am a little bit kind of rushing on this thing. So we have got Mr. Fazle Rabbi. So he's actually working also, I think, underprivileged section of the society. So a lot of people here are in the education field. We would love to hear something what you are also trying to do, and the discussion so far we have done, how you relate to those for your own activities.
Thank you. First of all, we work with underprivileged children, but also in education, we highly collaborated with Khan Academy. We work with Khan Academy as a Bangla language advocate. So to start with, I just want to talk about their latest AI tool, which can be relevant in this DPI and AI context. So Khan Academy launched Khanmigo, their AI-based platform, in March this year. So what is Khanmigo? So this is a AI-based tool which designed to help both educators and learners to get individual personalized learning system. So first, as example, for students, it helped students to get prompts, guidance to their learning, their collaboration, and their debate, and make them prepared. And they also get analysis of their performance in the platform, their learning history, and get tailor-made guidance, tailor-made interventions to their questions and to their learnings. And how Khanmigo helps nowadays for the teachers. So for the teachers, it works very differently. For the teachers, it helps the teachers to create lesson plans, to create rubrics and metrics, how they can use the students' data to create new assignments and also monitor their results, their performance. And it also helps the teachers to understand who are the struggling students and find them and make some tailor-made solutions or interventions for the class so that everyone in the classroom can get required treatment. So this is how Khanmigo works. So I think in our context, equality of access of the device for the students is very difficult and somewhat impossible for now. So how we can adopt, we are thinking, the other day we were thinking about this. Khanmigo is still in US based and highly contextualized in US situation and English based platform. So how we can adopt this for our education, our context, our children. Our education is still very teacher centric. So we can adopt the teacher portal part to our education system. Like we can propose a teacher facilitation platform where teachers can get ideas, contents, and help to create their lesson plans, to get the data from the students. As we all know, our education is currently going through a transformation. Class-based assessments, real-time assessment is now going on. So it can be helped the teachers, especially for the large classroom, to manage their time, to get the data of the students in real time and analyze them in a good way, so that they can make a good solution to the class, so that the struggling children are not struggling anymore, or he can take extra attempt to those children. So this can be adapted that way. And also I think for the stakeholders, for the authorities, it's always important to analyze real-time analysis for the system of the education, the situation of the education, the performance of the students, and create some need-based solution. So if we can make a platform where we can get the data, it can be AI-based platform. We can get the data, the performance-based data from the students, and analyze them and make some real-time solution. And we can adopt those solutions to rural people, disadvantaged people also, so that the divide, not only the digital divide, the overall divide, the intellectual divide, the pedagogical divide can be limited. I think that can be a good way to help.
Thanks. That was really useful, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people here may actually connect with you after this session to know more about how can they collaborate with you as well. Unfortunately, our another panelist, Dr. Rokunujaman, needed to kind of leave for an urgent thing. So you can just probably. So we are running short of time. So what we are going to do is basically probably take maximum 2 questions from the audience. Then I will actually invite Jagdish Da to kind of wrap up with his responses, and I may also pose 1 or 2 questions to him, and then we can actually end in next 10 to 15 minutes max. So any question or okay? So we can start with her. So please introduce yourself and just.
We have seen some textbook from India that has a QR code. It's really amazing. But I think if we start to in Bangladesh, it will be it will make a problematic situation, because the morality of Bangladeshis, really I have to say it, is very decreasing. And if this QR code is used, students, and we have seen in our online training for teachers will not really get the training. He or she will it herself or his মানে সে নিজে সেই অনলাইনে ট্রেনিংটা নেয়নি, অন্য কারো মাধ্যমে নিয়েছে। এমনকি কিউআর কোডটা যদি থাকে পাঠ্য বইয়ে, আমরা দেখেছি যে সার্টিফিকেটটা নিবে একটা স্টুডেন্ট, দেখা যাবে সে নিজে হয়তো সেই কিউআর কোডটা ইউজ করছে না, অন্য কাউকে দিয়ে করাচ্ছে, এরকমও হতে পারে। এই
identity issue that he or she is not using it, some other person are using it. So I'm pretty sure this, what she was suggesting, that in Bangladesh, because of lot of moral issues, their actual person may not use it. It may be kind of used by some other person. So I'm pretty sure this type of things are also happening in India. So what is your take on that thing?
Well, I think It's like somebody else writing the exam for me, kind of thing, right? Yeah, sure. I think as Professor pointed out, it's a skilling thingy. Like if you want to fix the air conditioning, somebody else cannot take the air conditioning course and you fix the air conditioner. You have to take the air conditioning course to fix it for you. And when everybody has to take the exam, initially we saw all of that happen. Initially we saw all of that. These are all technically solvable. Who did, what did it. And we don't have to go for solutions like that. It's not about policing. It's actually not about policing. It's about capacity building. It's about empowering. It's about access, as the UNICEF team talked about, right? So, in a sense, demand is very deep. We're talking about that problem where people are not finding it accessible. People are finding it difficult to get access to high quality content. We're talking about that, right? But high stakes, as you increase the stakes, then you have to factor for all of these, right? Where if stakes are very high, therefore people use fraudulent methods to go through it and all of that. But actually here, in one sense, we have to solve for universal access to high quality resources. And that's also what the UNICEF team talked about.
Sure. I think that answers her question. Any? Okay. So one question, and we will actually go for the concluding part. আমার মনে আপনি জোরে বলেন। Very short question.
So my name is Sadid. I'm working with the Boston Consulting Group. My question is to Julie. You talked about the ADT initiatives in 10 countries across Latin America and East Africa. Could you share any success stories of greater integration of students with disabilities by leveraging DPI and AI, shedding light specifically on how this integration was achieved and what Bangladesh can learn and adopt from this success story, especially to integrate students from outside of the capital who may have limited digital access and digital literacy?
I think that is quite a big question. I'm not sure whether Julie can actually answer it very short. Julie, can you just take maximum 30 seconds to answer even if some part of that question?
Yeah. As for now, we're not working directly on AI. This is the next step of this project, so I will leave this for another discussion. But we have worked with, so in Uruguay, for example, if I go directly for example, Uruguay has a huge platform called Plan Cebal, it's an agency of the Ministry of Education that provides digital learning education with trainings for teachers, but all the schools are being connected. So that's a very different, but we are working directly with their DPI because everything is on the cloud, everything is managed by the ministry. And it's also a platform for data collection for a lot of, resources in the country for the Ministry of Education, and they can, through that platform, also train a lot of teachers, and they're using this, in a very comprehensive way. We have other solutions. For example, in Uganda, we have great results of children with disabilities who, because of having offline access to those textbooks, so there were books created for the blind and books created for digital intellectual. I went myself to Uganda to see one of the schools where they are using it and integrated it in the whole school, that the school is now become an example in the country on inclusion. So they have gone into the communities that were having children at home. The children were not even in school, and they brought them in that school. They opened a boarding next to it. They got some local people who can sign language. Everybody is learning sign language. And for the first time in the country, there's students who manage to finalize their primary level and go to high school with excellent grades and recognition. So yes, I think there's,
thanks.
We have some different examples.
Okay, thanks. Do you still want the session to extend for another 5-10 minutes? Is it okay with most of you? Then we can take a little more number of questions. Okay, so the person at the back, I will be coming to you. So we will take 3 more questions then. আমার পিছনে যেন ওই যে পিছনে হ্যাঁ জি আমার মনে হয় আপনি জোরে করতে পারেন কোশ্চেন
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the floor. I am Dr. Ranjit Poddar, Associate Professor at Teachers Training College, Dhaka. I am going to ask you a quick questions on ethical matters. Of course, we will learn digital things, we will be digital, we will go forward. But how will you check the things like ChatGPT? Students are writing their assignments using ChatGPT, but we do not have any device to check them. Okay, so please, if you tell us something about that. Thank you very much.
who like you wanted
Anybody can answer this.
like I can say that I think he has already mentioned that if our focus is on policing, then we probably will not
No.
move ahead. I think that it is much more.
Also, some routing for tomorrow's session. Please attend tomorrow. There's an AI session.
Okay.
Education. That time possibly we can answer. That
Okay,
question.
thank you so much.
But that is a kind of common question.
Okay.
I can understand that. Like I think that lady who is at the middle. Oh, you want to answer?
Hello. Though it's not today's session is not based on AI, but I want to add just to use AI properly. AI is highly dependent on data, available data on the internet. So it's important if to have good quality and correct data and info in the internet. And also we need to educate ourselves so that we can understand the data, the information we are getting from the, even if I say ChatGPT, if it's wrong or right or real, or how I can identify, analyze it with the real data. So it's very important. I think we cannot blindly believe this AI at this moment as now, but it will improve with time, of course. Like there are some customized AI tools are have created, like which help, like Khanmigo. I was talking about Khanmigo. It will help you to stay in the focus, and it will not give you irrelevant answers or prompts when you ask about learning things. So these types of things will evolve, and I think we need to be more responsible and more creative to understand and learn this dimension of the things.
I think his concern was much more on the assessment than the learning thing. Yeah. Okay. So, hello. I may ask you, the lady there.
Thank you for giving me the floor. I'm Nishat Sabha from organization UNICEF. Pardon me if my question is irrelevant, but I have been facing this problem for a couple of days, so I thought this might be the place where I can ask this question. So whenever I try to search any contents, like let's say post-colonial transition in India, so there are lots of contents in Google, like ResearchGate, JSTOR, Academia, but all those contents are paid. So my question is, Smart Bangladesh Vision 2041 is built on one of the pillars, like building smart education. But for a developing country like ours, where owning smartphones are hard, where internet access is hard, and network, in the rural areas, network access is really challenging. So I think that paid contents are just adding one more challenge to this problem. So how do you think that DPI can address this issue? Thank you.
Yeah, sure, I can. That's a great question. Especially, I can tell you with my personal example of my lived experience in the last 4 years, maybe 5 years, that actually paid content is one section of the problem. But authoritative content is another problem. So the interpretation of that facts to each one of our own personal biases and maybe ignorance, right? But the holistic perspective may be missing. Investment in time may be missing. Somebody has spent a lifetime studying history. They have a better perspective than somebody like me who would just walk in and make a comment about it and make a YouTube video out of it, right? So there are all those issues, right? One is authoritative content. Second is accessible content, and then there is Paid is another interesting dimension. If Smart Bangladesh decides, I would declare that in 6 months, for all relevant academic topics, our teachers in Bangladesh are competent to produce enough material. Need not be Disney quality, need not be movie quality. That's not necessary, because in the classroom I don't see a Disney quality presentation. I see a teacher presenting, and that's what I get maximum value from. So that content available to all in Bangladesh and neighboring countries can happen in 6 months. And that goal I have seen in India, 250,000 pieces of content relevant to the textbooks, relevant to the curriculum happen in person. Therefore, not a big deal.
আমার মনে হয় অনেকগুলি হাত চলে উঠে গেছে। ও ইউ হ্যাভ এ কোশ্চেন, ওকে প্লিজ। তারপরে আমরা ওখানে যাব। আমার মনে হয় এখানে দেন আগে।
Hello, yes, this is Dipesh here. I am a project manager of one of the SI company, especially we work in education sector. My question is on the assessment side, which everyone was concerned about. Actually, technology sometimes making our life difficult with respect to assessment evaluation as we are morally degraded. So my question to Mr. Jagadish, actually I know the Sunbird and Diksha, we have developed and implemented in African countries in your software, and I met Manandan also in Bangalore office more than 6 years ago. So it's a pleasure to see you again here. So my question is, how this technology or DPI is implementing or developing the systems? What kind of preventive measures we can take to assess and evaluate the students with respect to what madam was telling? The teachers also are doing fake things. They are making certificates, and the madam was telling that the contents are fake. I know India has done a lot in the last 5 years, what you have just said now. But when our morality is degraded, I know how China, Japan, and Korea has developed their systems with respect to DPI and AI by using. So what is your experience and what is your suggestion with respect to Bangladesh? Because this is now a very, very major burning question with respect to assessment.
I think he
Thank
got
you.
the question. Like,
thank you
very
so much.
Quickly, you have answered it before though.
I guess if you increase the stakes, things become risky. But continuous assessment, with continuous assessment, it becomes difficult to fake. For example, if I'm a traffic offender, if you stand at one corner only, then I will not offend only in that corner. Where the police is there, I will be very, very decent. Everywhere else I will offend, right? But if I'm continuously evaluated, the data point you can measure, right? Now, of course, one is to look at the high stakes problem. The other is actually a social inclusion problem that we have to pay attention to. Assessment for the sake of question comes, right? If you want to take assessment for the sake of getting admission to a high stakes degree, it's a different problem. But is my class at par with the required levels? The teacher should get that assessment, especially in primary levels. Extremely important. Because that's where our loss is, majority of the loss is. Then the methods, for example, in Uttar Pradesh, 7 crore assessments are happening using pen and paper, because even teachers have access problem to technology, right? You don't want teachers to be fiddling with the computers in a classroom. Pen and paper assessments digitized efficiently using a building block called Saral, and that's beautiful, right? And data is going to everybody. So there are methods, but depends on the question, right? I would be also worried if it is a too high stakes assessment, then we are dealing with policing.
Yes, and based on a data-driven approach, I guess. I think I will take the last one from him, because the organizers are actually pushing me to have it. আমরা পিছনে উনি অনেকক্ষণ আগে বলেছিল, হ্যাঁ, খুব কুইকলি। হ্যাঁ, মাইক।
Sir, I'm Mohammad Kabirul Hassan, Additional Director, University Grants Commission of Bangladesh. Sir, my question is, how can we implement DPI and AI in higher education sector in Bangladesh? This is my question.
So is DPI being implemented in India also in higher education, or only in primary or secondary?
No. Actually, higher education is possibly the first place where you should go. Why? Because first of all, our youth will have possibly more access to technology. You can punt on that. Then, first of all, technology should not go to primary education for children's direct access. That's not right, because they should be using more tactile methods. So, skilling, especially online skilling, right? 2 on-demand courses, the way Professor was talking about, that would help them to secure jobs and employment and livelihood. That possibly should be the first place to go after. So there is a product called NPTEL in running out of IIT Madras, where my son studies in a premier engineering college in Karnataka, which is Bangalore, state of Bangalore, where Bangalore is, and it is a top college. When I go there, the professors there are all 30 years, and the 0.1% of the students, top students, come to that college. But in the notice board, what do I see? NPTEL courses. I'm very happy because we kind of have a small hand in making it translated to multiple Indian languages of the NPTEL courses, because English is not the only consumption mechanism. And when I saw that, I was surprised and asked the professor, "You are allowing NPTEL here? Why you are all here? It's all very highly regarded professors here." "Yeah, but why do you want to repeat it? There is a course online, take it so that I save my time and effort, right? So take that course, show me that course that you have taken it, that's solved. All the prerequisites are done on NPTEL. Think about that, how beautiful. I will not teach you prerequisites for my course. You finish it on NPTEL, and that's a prerequisite anyway for your sake, and I'm not going to police the hell out of it. So life is good, right?
Thanks. Let us kind of finish this open Q&A session. But I will actually, we are almost at the end of the session. I will ask Jagdish the just last question, and with that we can actually end, because we are all like almost 30 minutes ran short of the schedule. So one kind of, I would say much more a kind of philosophical aspect of the whole thing is what we have seen, that even in India and also in other parts, that like it used to be kind of, the education used to be very much kind of public sector led, like for centuries. So, but we have seen in recent times, particularly in India, lot of like huge investment, private investment in edtech going on, like Baiju and all other Unacademy and all the other things. They have spent billions of dollars in creating good quality education, content and other things. Now we are seeing another kind of thing about the little bit government like initiated DPI approach in kind of content or education. So, and also at the same time, what we have seen, even in a lot of other countries, that basic public infrastructure like roads, ports, airports are actually being handed over to private players. Now, whereas, is it kind of, what's your take on that thing? Like, because the pretext was that government is poor in handling these type of things. That's why they are inviting private like investors, entrepreneurs. Do you think that this DPI approach, which is primarily led by state and governments, may actually create the quality issue in the down the line?
Yeah, so, but if you look at, anyway, you said payment is a transaction and we should not look at transactional systems for these kind of things. But I have lived through payment transformation also. That credit cards, debit cards, industry saying, we were happy with our credit cards and all, and we don't want all this mobile business. And today, you cannot carry your credit card, debit card and cash in India and get a tender coconut, okay? You need to have a mobile phone with a UPI payment for you to get a tender coconut also. So, but coming back to this topic, see this first of all, there is a high end of the education segment where what I call the students and parents are strivers to achieve perfection, achieve larger goals, right? So they always want to optimize the results, right? I want to confess, even my personal money has gone into Baiju because my wife insists on optimization, right? Whereas my time is going into making digital public infrastructure good, right? So that market segment will always thrive. It's important to have that segment, right? But making common good is a very important objective. So that way, making common good accessible and available to folks on the ground is a very important one. Minute you do that, then the baseline gets shifted, like what happened in the payment industry, where payment becomes easy for everybody, then rich, poor doesn't matter. First, therefore, can I just conclude therefore, so that we, in the interest of time, right? See, the larger story that we are going after is use technology for an unfair advantage. That's one way to think about. Using technology for common good to lift the society completely up, so that we are operating at a higher baseline from where we are today. We should think about not automating the present, that is digitizing. Going digital is in the way of skilling question that was asked. In the primary outcomes that we want to ensure, people learn language, how to read well, people learn how to speak English well, so that their opportunities for employment gets guaranteed. People actually learn how to use AI productively, because AI is going to be common for all of us, right? So how it will change. So this is our focus should be, and not make technology for automating things, which is a digital story, right? The public infrastructure stories should allow for innovation from the market players, so new possibilities can come. That is when the leapfrogging possibility happens. That's when Bangladesh can be saying we are 2-3 notches above in the next 2 to 3 years, simply because this infrastructure provided that possibility. And not make teachers irrelevant by automating technology so that I don't have to teach and the teaching happens online. Those are all not the considerations. How do I provide that leap for students, teachers, and youth?
Yes, I think like you probably, what you're trying to say is that it is putting like raising the base above, where a lot of kind of private innovators can build lot of things on top of that infrastructure. So I think in the payment industry we have seen the same thing. Based on the UPI, lot of others kind of.
But with one stress, right? Common is not bad.
Of course not.
Common is good, but there are other things that market exists to do whatever they need to do, but common is already good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right? So I think I thank all our kind of presenters, panelists, and also the audience for your patience hearing and being with us. I hope it was useful. With this short amount of time, we probably couldn't get into much depth. But I think this is a kind of journey, a continuous type of thing, what Jagdish Da was saying. So thanks once again. I think there are kind of lunch outside, so you are welcome to have lunch, and we end this here. Thanks a lot.